Let me go ahead and give you 4 actionable tips, things that you could do right now to skyrocket your growth as a beginner filmmaker. These are tips that I've used, so I know they're gonna help you as well. Let's go. The first tip is going to be using your iPhone or whatever phone that you have as a second camera / second angle. A lot of beginner filmmakers, they don't realize the power of using multiple cameras at the same time. The most obvious reason for using your iPhone or whatever phone that you have as a second source is because you can get a lot more creative angles and you can get a lot more footage. You guys can already see that I have the iPhone 12 Pro setup in that corner over there. You get this nice, really cool angle of the setup. But if you come back to the Sony a7 III over here, you have your iconic concept new era look. But the whole underlying reason, the most important reason for doing this is because the video that you shoot becomes a lot more engaging when you have these second camera angles and you get to learn multiple camera operations at the same time. So while you do this, what you're kind of doing is doubling your experience on how you like to frame things. You get to learn a little bit more about composition, and when the time comes to buy a second camera, which you will if you're seriously trying to become a filmmaker, you're gonna learn what you really want from that second camera versus just going to buy, in my case, another copy of the a7 III. You might want an a7R5, right? Because you just realize what your parameters are now. The second tip is going to be to invest in a drone. A lot of you beginner filmmakers are afraid to do this because 1, you think it costs quite a bit. 2, you think the learning curve for it might be a little too difficult. And 3, you don't know what you're gonna do with this drone once you have it. Well, let me just break all those stereotypes for you. 1, you shouldn't be thinking of this as an expense. You should be thinking of this, like I said before, an investment. So for those of you that do freelance work, and if you don't, definitely start doing it, adding a drone to your package or whatever video service that you offer will only allow you to upsell. So your price is gonna go up, and therefore the drone is just basically gonna pay itself back. 2, right? You guys think that the learning curve is a little too difficult, but I promise you, you can have this thing and know how to fly confidently within 30 minutes. 30 minutes flat. This took me about 15 minutes to pick up. Once I had this in the air after the first flight, it's good to go. At that point, it's just learning new tricks, new pathways to capture the most cinematic or however style footage that you want out of a sky camera. And 3, you just don't know what you're gonna do with the drone, right? You have it, you don't know how often you're gonna use it, but I promise you, you're gonna be in a lot of cool locations like the beach, like the desert, like the valleys, like the mountains, and you're just gonna wanna throw your drone out there versus just having your camera and trying to get that low angle. It's awesome. This is just gonna give you a lot more creative freedom, and on top of all of that, it's just super fun. This is probably my most favorite part about being a filmmaker, flying a drone. And if you're having fun with me, don't forget to like this video. Definitely do not forget to subscribe because you know I'd love to have you. And let's get back to tip number 3. Tip number 3 is going to be sound design. A video becomes a lot more enticing when you have that audio perspective. It's what makes video come to life. So you want to be able to craft, basically just put the puzzle together of all the little audio details to create an environment that you think is going to complement your subject. You want to be able to go from the natural sounds, the wind, the trees rustling, the birds chirping, all the way down to whatever it is that your subject is doing. In my case, I did this vintage car edit. In reality, it's just sitting there. There's nothing interesting going on. It's a nice, cool morning. The engine is off and it's parked. But because of the sound design that I built around the whole scene, the birds, the roaring of the engine, it sounds like it's race car ready to go. Last but not least, tip number 4 is going to be to act on when you're inspired, to build discipline. And what I mean by that is when you get that spark, when you get that little idea in your head that just excites you, act on it as fast as you can and not just writing it down. You want to actually go do it as quickly as possible. Execute right away. And the reason for that is because those moments are heightened learning experiences. You want to be able to capitalize on that. And the more that you act on your inspirations, no matter how good you are, forget about how good you are, because you're going to get better as you do this. You're just gonna build a habit of doing, and that's gonna build your discipline, the discipline to constantly improve. This is what has skyrocketed me. This is what has projected me so far in just a year. You guys can go back on the history on the channel and you can see my growth is kind of insane. I'm very proud of myself, and I want you to feel that way about yourself as well. So act, don't just spark, light up, be a fire, and constantly improve your craft. That was fucking good. And now that you have those 4 awesome tips to help you build, let me give you the essentials to your camera bag, what camera gear you actually need. I'm leaving that right here for you. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, because I want you to be a part of this creative journey, and I will see you next week.